Imagine a man so stupid that his own neighbors turned ruining him into a game. The richest merchants in town would keep a straight face and walk right up to him. Then they would hand him the single dumbest business idea they could invent, a trade so certain to lose money that no living person could profit from it. Then they would sit back and wait for the afternoon. It finally destroyed him. They played this game for years. Here is the part they could never explain. Every time they tried it, he came back richer. Not once, not by luck. Again and again, the most idiotic idea in the world turned to gold in his hands. Until the men trying to destroy him started to wonder something uncomfortable, whether they were the fools. So here is what you have to decide by the end of this. Whether you are looking at the luckiest idiot who ever lived, or the most brilliant con man in American history hiding behind a mask of stupidity. His name was Timothy Dexter. He was born in 1747, dirt poor, on a farm in Massachusetts. He got a few months of schooling in his whole life. He could barely read. He could barely write. At 8, he was working the fields. At 16, they handed him to a leather worker to learn a trade. That was it. Dirt and leather. By every measure the world uses to size a man up, Dexter was nothing. And he was going to stay nothing. Then he made his first move. At 22, this penniless, barely literate leather worker talked a wealthy widow into marrying him. She had money, she had a house, and just like that, Dexter had the one thing he had never had, a stake. Now watch what he did with it. It's the American Revolution. The colonies are printing their own money, called Continental currency. And as the war drags on, that money turns into a joke, worth pennies on the dollar. Everyone with any sense is dumping it as fast as they can. Dexter did the opposite. He took every cent he had and every cent his wife had, and he bought up mountains of the worthless paper. The whole town watched the fool pour his fortune into money that would never be worth a thing, and they laughed. Then the war ended, a new country was born, and the new government offered to trade that discarded currency for real value. Overnight, Dexter's worthless paper became a fortune. He was rich, and here is the strange part. Years later, in his own book, Dexter bragged that he knew exactly what he was doing. He wrote that they all laughed at him, so he bought at his own price. He claimed he had men sound the horn and play the fool for him while he sat on 9 tons of silver. Maybe that was true. Maybe it was an old man rewriting his own luck into genius. With Dexter, you can never quite tell. That is the whole problem with him. And now the trouble really starts, because a lucky idiot can win once. Dexter was about to win over and over and over. He had money now, and he wanted the one thing money couldn't buy him: respect. He wanted in with the town's elite, and they would rather die than let him in. To them, he was a crude, illiterate embarrassment who had tripped into wealth he didn't earn. So they came up with a plan to take it all back. Dexter had started buying ships, playing at being a merchant, so the real merchants fed him advice. Terrible, poisoned advice, dressed up as generous insider tips. The most ruinous trades they could dream up. He would sink his whole fortune and finally disappear. The first tip was almost too cruel to say with a straight face: ship bed-warming pans to the West Indies. A bed-warming pan is a heavy metal pan you fill with hot coals. You slide it under the sheets to survive a freezing New England winter night. The West Indies is a tropical paradise where it's never, ever cold. It was like selling snow shovels in the desert. A guaranteed, humiliating total loss. Dexter loved it. He bought the pans by the thousand. As the story goes, more than 40,000 of them. And he shipped them south. The merchants could barely keep from laughing. Finally, then his ships came home, with a profit, because Dexter's man on the ground looked at these long metal scoops with lids and saw something nobody else did. They were perfect for ladling molasses. The islands ran on molasses. He filed off the old name, called them ladles, and the plantations bought every single one. Then they ordered more. The trap had sprung on the men who set it. So you tell yourself it was a fluke, a freak accident, and you try again, harder. They told him to ship wool mittens to the same tropical islands. Insane. Thick winter mittens, to people who had never seen frost. But his mittens landed in port at the exact moment a fleet of Asian trading ships came through. Ships bound for the frozen ports of Siberia. They bought the whole lot on the spot, so they reached for something dumber. They told him to ship cats to the Caribbean. A ship full of stray cats. Nothing could be dumber than that, except the islands were drowning under a plague of rats, and Dexter's cats sold at a premium as living pest control. And now, something changed. They stopped laughing. They started watching him, nervous, because every single trick meant to expose the idiot had somehow made him richer instead. Some of them had bankrupted themselves, trying to keep up with trades they thought were jokes. They had built the trap so many times that they had fallen into it themselves, one after another, while Dexter walked away richer each time. So they stopped being clever, and they reached for the most pointless, most doomed idea that has ever existed. They told him to ship coal to Newcastle. You have to understand the insult buried in that. Newcastle was the coal capital of the entire world, so buried in the stuff that carrying coals to Newcastle was already a saying. It meant doing something so pointless it was laughable. This was their masterpiece, the one trade no human being could survive. Dexter shipped the coal, and as the story goes, his ships sailed into Newcastle in the middle of a miners' strike. The mines had stopped, the coal capital of the world had for once run bone dry, and here came Dexter, his hold packed with the one thing a desperate city couldn't get. He sold every lump at a brutal premium and sailed home under a mountain of silver. He had taken the very definition of a pointless act and turned it into one of the richest days of his life. Look at the whole run of it. The currency, the pans, the mittens, the cats, the coal. Every worst idea in the world, and every one of them made him richer. The men who set out to destroy him had spent years quietly handing him one fortune after another. One of them said the man could fall in a pit of manure and climb out smelling of roses. So we come to the question this whole story is really about. Was Timothy Dexter a fool? The case that he was is strong. And it's not only the trades. The moment he got rich, Dexter started behaving like a man who had lost his mind. He declared himself a lord in a country that had just fought a war to abolish lords. He ringed his mansion with 40 giant wooden statues of the great men of history, George Washington, Napoleon, Adam and Eve, and towering in the middle of them, a statue of himself. The plaque beneath called him the first in the East and the first in the West, and the greatest philosopher in the Western world. He hired a private poet, whose only job was to trail him and sing his praises. He wrote a book, 8,847 words, and not one single punctuation mark anywhere inside it. When readers complained they couldn't follow a word, he printed a new edition, and at the very back he added a page of nothing but punctuation marks, with a note telling readers to pepper and salt it as they pleased, sprinkle the commas in wherever they liked, and near the end he faked his own death. He built a coffin, hired mourners, staged the whole funeral, just to see who would cry for him. Around 3,000 people came. And Dexter, very much alive, watched from his hiding place, furious, by his own account, that his wife wasn't weeping hard enough. When the funeral was over, he found her and beat her with his cane for it, and that wasn't even his strangest habit. Visitors to the mansion sometimes met his wife in the halls. Dexter would tell them, straight-faced, that the poor woman had died years ago, and that the person they were looking at was only her ghost. He also grew tired of being a mere lord, so he promoted himself. He started calling himself the Earl of Chester, after an estate he bought in New Hampshire. That's not, on its face, the resume of a stable genius. But look again, because a very different man is hiding underneath. The currency bet was never insane. It was a cold, early gamble that the new nation would pay its debts. The same bet the smartest merchants were quietly making. The absurd trades all shared one quiet thing. They worked on timing and sharp agents, and a man willing to touch risks that proud, sensible people would not. And the madness starts to look like something else entirely. Take the 40 statues. Dexter had money sunk in the local bridge, and its traffic was dying. His own biographer was convinced the giant open-air museum was a scheme to drag crowds across that bridge, and it worked. The visitors poured in. He would even switch the nameplates around, just to watch people argue over who was who. Then the book, riddled with errors. Yes, but this was a man who knew the whole town mocked him for being unlettered. Many believe he butchered the spelling on purpose, to throw the insult back in their faces and sell more copies doing it. Every stunt brought him the one thing they had denied him his entire life. Attention, his name in every mouth in America. The fool, it turns out, understood publicity 2 centuries before the word existed. So which was he? And the only honest answer is that we will never know. That is the whole point of him. Maybe he was a genuine idiot the universe simply refused to let fail. Or maybe he was a sharp, strange man who worked out something else. If they lock the front door, you buy your way in through history instead, by becoming the greatest show anyone had ever seen. Or maybe he kept winning for the exact reason they called him a fool. He was the only man in town willing to do the thing everybody already knew was stupid, because everybody knew you could not sell coal to Newcastle. Everybody except the one man who tried.